just having a conversation outside with AICT's chief, and we were talking about, creating education that has impact, that resonates with the market forces, And of course, in that conversation, globalization and internationalization of higher education has a role to play. It has a critical overlap, if I may call it. So we have a wonderful panel lined up. Let me straightway dive into my first question. I want to start with the only lady on the panel, because let's be fair to the gender. A lot is being said about that India has taken strides in, making its education more globalized, more relevant, in tune with what is happening out there in the market. As an outsider, how do you see the development that has taken place over the last, say, 2 to 3 years?
During the pandemic, Coursera for Campus went live to all the institutions across the world. We, as a benefit corporation, we decided that education continuity is also our responsibility, and we will enable institutions worldwide to be able to continue education without any roadblocks. And we saw 1,100 campuses in India adopted Coursera for Campus as part of their learning programs, and that too giving for credit, and integrated those learnings from international universities or educators from different industries around the world into their curriculums. So this actually shows how globalized mindsets that universities already have, if provided the opportunity and a forum where this connection can happen. As a result of that, about 17 million students could gain some micro-credentials from the industry, also could gain multiple certifications in specialized subjects through that program. Even today, Coursera for Campus partners with several institutions across India, and students are able to, in the framework of the university, gain a lot of knowledge. And this is, I think, a clear indicator of we are looking outside our plate and we are looking outwards. We are trying to take whatever best is available in the world and incorporate it into our curriculums, and make sure whatever we deliver within our institutions is world-class excellence. And we've also seen a very high rate of adoption from the faculty, also looking towards industry collaborations through this system. So I think that globalization mindset already exists. Now the next step is how to build attractiveness of students from. The next step is how to build international student attractiveness. How do we ensure there are international enrollments coming to universities and campuses in India? And that can only happen on the back of making sure that the academic excellence we demonstrate, the perception of our education system outside of India is strong and sturdy. And I think with the steps being taken in that direction, we heard Dr. Sitaram, we heard Dr. Pankaj Mittal talk about several initiatives which are already underway to transform universities. At Coursera, we are making a small contribution in enabling universities to be able to do that. I think we are on the right path there. And these things are already in motion. The outcomes will come soon.
Of course, I think what you mentioned importantly is that we have the mindset, we have taken the steps, and of course more will come as we move on. I want to go to Dr. Ramachandran at this moment. Just a direct question to you. How has globalization and internationalization impacted higher education overall, not just in India, in your view? How has it kind of built in a culture of overlap, mutual learning?
Internationalization in general is not a new phenomenon. This has been happening in our Indian industry for decades or centuries together. And we have been attracting students from various countries to study, and vice versa has also had been happening. But Post-corona, because of the technological advancements, I feel that this has strengthened the whole scenario.
In post-pandemic, there have been bigger shifts happening in the space, and it has strengthened and become better than before.
Yes.
That's what you would like to, right? Right. Professor Raju, of course, your initial thought on where do our institutions stand when it comes to globalization and the impact that we are trying to create. Of course, we have. But some of them, say that it's just a tick mark. It's not really having that ethos that has impact, that creates market-friendly, outcomes. Where do you see our attempt of globalizing our own curricula?
Very good morning. As in one of the eminent speakers, Professor Sitaram, AIST chairman, was mentioning, he is going to bring out some of the FDP programs at the IIT level to have the common teaching where in the emerging courses. And also, some of the entrance examinations, they are going to bring it as a common entrance exam throughout the nation. Under the national education policy, we say that it's like a nationalization. Likewise, if you take as a part, it's a nationalization. If you take part and part, I feel it's as internationalization. If you take as a whole, it's a globalization. Now the institutions are very much interested for internationalization and also the globalization, both the institutions and the universities. That's why all the institutions, now they are tying up with the international universities, with the MOIs or something else, to have the faculty exchange programs, faculty exchange and also the student exchange. This will definitely, I think, bring some changes in our educational policies. And when the national education policies, I think, has given more flexibility for the educational institutions. When our policy, when the international universities comes into our India, then we have to really see how the international universities is going to give the impact on our national universities.
Right. So, of course, I think it's an important point that you mentioned, We need to, of course, make more intensive efforts to make it more relatable, to take it to the next level. Let me bring in Professor Arumugam. How are universities adapting to the changing landscape of global higher education? And what are some of the key challenges and opportunities that you can, share with us?
Yeah, good. And good afternoon to everyone. The question is how the universities are changing to the pace in which the global education is changing. I think those dignitaries sitting in hall, most probably you have visited all the leading university in the world. We have trained sufficiently in the foreign countries. Whether really we are transforming or transferring the things which we have learned in the foreign universities or the facilities which we had we have seen in the university. This is really, last 30 years I am seeing very rarely some of the universities are changing the facilities, culture and curriculum. So this is the biggest bottleneck, and one of the reason for that is the funding. As everybody knows that India is spending 0.6% of GDP only towards education, while the US is more than 5% of the GDP. So this is a situation, it's a real situation in which now we are talking about globalizing Indian education. Unless otherwise we change or fund our research projects or the infrastructure development in the university and the changing the curriculum as fast as the world wants, chances are very bleak in increasing our global competency, number one. And number two, we have a different system. One is the central university, state university, private university and all. And every university, the level of competency is vary with the faculty, infrastructure, and the mode of administration. This is really, it is reduces the fast pace of globalization. And of course, now the universities are changing their curriculum development and the updating the syllabus, but the rate of change is not in pace with the world requirement. I think this needs to a great change in India to cope up with the international standards.
In addition to what Vice Chancellor has commented, the opportunity that we could see now is joint research publications. Research avenues have opened up to the world. There are a lot of research avenues in terms of publications which are coming up, in fact, with international universities.
Let me go to Dr. Vaidya Subramaniam here. First of all, your initial comments on this topic that we are debating, globalization and internationalization of higher education. Where do we stand?
Thank you very much. By way of an opening remark, I just want to touch an area that nobody has touched, about which your own chairman in his opening remarks was mentioning about the underfunding of institutions. From that perspective, the internationalization of universities, from the quantum of funding that is required to create an experience for the learner community, the teaching community in Indian institutions that are at par with what we see as international benchmarks is very critical. Now for that, it is not just going to be an overnight change that's going to happen, that's going to immediately one day, one big advertisement of some university that says we are a world-class university. So it's not going to happen that way. If many of you know who Philip Alback is, I mean, he has also very categorically said that, every institution wants to become a world-class university, but nobody knows what it is, and nobody knows what it takes to become a world-class university. So that concept itself, is very foggy and mystic to many of those who are already renowned institutions. So when we talk about financing, let's understand that it was in the 19th century when you wanted to establish a world-class university of an international standard, it required at least 100 years and $50 million at that point of time. And then later, when University of Chicago in the 20th century wanted to establish an internationally renowned world-class university, it reduced time. It said we'll do it in 50 years with $100 million. And then Cornell, when it actually established its first medical campus in Asia, it invested $750 million. And this was in the early 2000s. And as recently as in the 2015 to 16, when the King Abdullah University of Science and Technology established its campus, which it truly called it as a world-class university, it took $3 billion. So that's the quantum of funding that is required to actually set up a world-class university of international standards. So you should understand the financial undercurrents that are very strong in establishing an institution of that standard. To give you in a proper perspective with recent data, to make my statement good, if you look at the closing financial returns of the top 3 universities in the world, and none of which is Asian, their revenue is close to $16 billion. The top 3 Asian universities, none of which is Indian, the revenue is $3 billion. The top 3 Indian institutions, their combined revenue is less than 2,000 crores. So that's what we are actually comparing institutions with a different breed of institutions where the quantum of funding is entirely huge. Leave the revenues part. The combined surplus that the top 3 universities in the world generate is less than the total amount that we invest in all of the centrally financed technical institutions put together. So that's on the funding part. So we have to ask the question ourselves, to become internationally renowned and build world-class universities, are there adequate creative financing mechanisms for both public and private institutions who can create an autogenous model that can build huge resources of finance? At the end of the day, it is that is more essential, while the rest, like a Coursera or any of these experiences, are available for a price. But do we have the funding to make this international experience possible? That is the larger question that many institutions have to ask themselves.
And these are very surprising numbers, of course. Thanks for sharing these. It shows where we stand. Dr. Ramachandran, tell me what stops us from having a Harvard and Oxford on our side? I mean, what is stopping us? Is it the mindset? Of course, I don't think there are any issues when it comes to the money part. But has our thinking become so stagnant that we don't even want to think about it?
Nothing is stopping us as such, but I would say the affordability. So,
even you think our students won't even believe us if we start charging them for something and offer them a quality?
Indian mindset is parents invest in education, and Indian students, a majority of them take loans to do their studies. So I don't think investment in education is something which is to be taken into consideration.
All right. Ms. Rastogi, let me ask you, tech is our hope, tech is, of course, making us cross boundaries and take our richness to other parts of the world. How can universities leverage technology to facilitate international, exchanges and collaborations?
I was about to say, while the magnum of investment that Sir was quoting doesn't seem to be on the horizon quite soon, but there is in India a concept of leapfrogging by way of innovation at the ground level. And I think that's what makes India so unique. And that's how our education system can actually develop world-class excellence without a huge amount of capital investment or operating expenditure as well. So technology is the big enabler. We have seen it in the services company, IT services revolution that the country has seen. Now it has also started to happen on in product companies and data companies emerging out of India. A large part of startups are actually product and data companies leveraging the consumer demand in India. So I think that's where our learning back into the system comes from. And we are a platform that enables whatever the university wants to achieve. If you have a vision of modernizing your curriculum and you think the whole curriculum revision process and unavailability of faculty in emerging technologies which are at par with what industry is asking for, we have an answer to that solution. We would say that through our platform, can you do two things? Can you make sure that your curriculum is updated at any given point of time and leverage labs that Coursera offers without investing in the virtual lab infrastructure yourself? Just use the cloud virtualized labs that Coursera offers and deliver projects-based learning into your institution. Secondly, at the same time, devise the vision that you want to achieve with the faculty and leverage our power to train your faculty to be at international standards. When you do both the things simultaneously, using technology at a fraction of a cost and a much lesser time, you can actually get at least to a level where we can say that this is what we are achieving, and then rest of the things come later. So it's just things being put in motion. And I talked about the 4 points where we have seen the maximum impact. And I think that's the way I would recommend personally in the absence of the funding that Sir talked about.
Interestingly, I mean, when it comes to funding, and the startup world has made it a very mainstream word, And very strangely, startups have never celebrated big degrees, you know, it's very strange, right? They always celebrated the dropouts, but I think that's also changing. Let me come to you, Professor Raju. So what is your take on what is stopping us from becoming the global? Of course, we have Google, we have the Microsofts, we have all the success stories, but they have strayed into excellence. There was not a planned excellence, you know. But how can we have a planned education policy, system, institutions that produce excellence and figures in the global list where we are nowhere, you know?
One of our panelists also was mentioning, one is the affordability, the finance affordability. I think the funding part also, our panelist was telling we are at very low. So we should definitely have the collaborations with the international universities, thereby develop some of the research and get some of the research funding. And also we have so much of research funding agencies even in our nation also. I think although we are doing great research, but we have to match up with the international. Right. Then I think definitely the curriculum, some of the like Coursera, they are all helping us to get good courses. And our courses should equally compete with the courses which the international universities are having. I can say definitely we are matching them, but still I think there is a little gap where I think we should match up and then grow further, and funding programs and research. All these things will definitely help to match with the international universities.
Professor Arumugam, thinking big, thinking global, and actually doing it, not just in paper.
India, we are producing the best graduates, no doubt. Because every year more than 5 lakh graduates are going abroad, either for job or higher education. That means our education is good in one sense. Theoretically, our students are excellent. But when coming to the part of the international skilling, the skilling is lacking. Even it is in the higher institution, even the national institutes or state level institute, the level of the technical knowledge or the skill manpower, it's lacking. This is because of the cutting edge laboratory, it's not in existence in all the institution and university in India. That's the biggest flaw in our side. So this has to be improved a lot. Though gone are the days, we have to invest heavily on the development of infrastructure and the institution. Then coming to the teachers and collaboration part, that needs to be, augmented in a very high way, because most of the periphery colleges, they are lack in motivation. Even the faculties or the management, they need to improve. Then only the students get motivated to go for a higher learnings in the university, national institutes or the international institute. So these are the things has to be changed in a very drastic way to improve our higher education. And otherwise our education and other degrees are on par or equal with the other countries which is awarding degree, except the practical part or the skilling.
Okay, so in paper we are there. Okay. You want to add a point here?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a couple of universities that Sir mentioned. They actually had a small congress because they also felt that what the students need and at the pace at which the industry is changing, how to make sure that they're always relevant to the students who are coming to campus. And for them, it's even more pressing as an issue because the quantum of fee that the student has to pay to get onto those campuses is very, very substantial. And obviously, there's a global reputation to protect. And in that Congress, what they found is the only way they can survive is collaboration. It is not possible for each university to develop excellence in every field. So if there are 142 programs running at a university, which are those programs in which we are not fundamentally very strong, But there are other educators around the country who can help us deliver that excellence. And one of the things that came out of Congress is how can we design ourselves for a 60-year curriculum? And what do they mean by a 60-year curriculum? We know that while we say industry is a great educator because we want to assimilate the information they are researching on into our curriculums, at the same time we know that industry has a significant need of retraining their employees. So where is the collaboration possible in both dimensions? That we take information and we do collaboration with you, embed that into our current programs, but that at the same time step up to train the workforce in your organization that needs retraining. And a very good example of that is the UC Berkeley program. UC Berkeley went on to establish a multi-campus program where the student has an opportunity to spend either some time in Korea or San Diego, and depending on the stream they want to specialize on. And they also assimilated programs for credit from some of those institutions into their program. On Coursera, we see this happen for the MSTS program that UC Boulder offers. UC Boulder's MSTS program takes credits from other courses that students complete on Coursera into the admission pathways. So there are mechanisms that everybody is trying to figure out. We just have to be a little opening our progressive curriculums to be able to do that.
Absolutely. I think that flexibility, that openness, that you can learn while you are away on different campuses. Yes. So I want to quickly go to Dr. Vaidya Subramanian and then come to you. Earlier you raised very valid points with backed by numbers, and let me also ask you: do we have success stories too that we can recall? Also, how do you explain our people shining globally, coming out of our education systems? How does that work, and how does it work backwards also, in influencing them further?
See, we have enough success stories of Indians excelling, but the unfortunate part is that excellence has sprouted in a foreign soil, and we immediately take, excessive celebration brownie points on that and feel that we have achieved, the entire Indian higher education has achieved what it is supposed to do. Of course, those are all benchmarks that we need to actually put in place as inspirational models, and then go back to our drawing boards and ask ourselves the fundamental question: what it takes to replicate those success stories in Indian soil. As the chairman was mentioning, chairman of AICT was mentioning this morning, now the rules of the game has been fixed. What institutions need to do has been fixed. The only thing that needs to be addressed immediately, and one of the main reasons why Indians go abroad, and I've written exhaustively on this, there is something called my friend Professor Vaidyanathan from IIM Bangalore, he used to say, we always have this POTA data, pulled out of thin air. We just simply shoot some data points and feel that is right actually. But we will have to actually internalize those data points and ask the fundamental question, what needs to be done immediately so that we can also meet those benchmarks. So when this foreign university campuses in India, that regulation was passed, a lot of people started saying that, next 10 years, the amount of dollars that will go outside India will diminish and all of that. Well, to a certain extent it is correct, but that's not the fact, because a survey that was done says the majority interest of Indians to go abroad is to get a new experience of education in a foreign soil, which is lacking here. So what we need to do to replicate that type of an experience in Indian soil is the question that we need to ask, for which, the rules of the game are already there. So to cut the long story short, the regulators have fixed the rules of the game. Now it is left to the institutions leaders of institutions to actually leverage on some of the rules and start building certain models within their own campuses. There again, the challenge is whether all institutions can afford to do that type of an exercise, whether they enjoy that type of an autonomy is a larger question which needs to be addressed. So I always say we need a kind of an ICC type system where the International Cricket Council says this is the rule of the game, then the countries, their captains decide who the playing 11 is, they will decide who's going to open the bowling attack, they will decide who's going to, what's the field setup, everything. Likewise, the Indian higher education leadership must rise to an occasion where they have to exercise certain levels of reasonable autonomy to decide what is good for their institution to bring about such an international experience, and to which we also need certain levels of autonomy, which in my view, we've just started, but still a long, long, long way to go.
Wonderful. I think autonomy, but reasonable autonomy is the key word here. There are a lot of thought leaders here, and I would like to have a question from the audience as well. Anyone who has a question?
This is Professor Srimati from SRM.
Sorry, yeah.
I would like to tell one thing. I have read one article how China made the, as Sir Professor Vaidyanathan, Vice Chancellor of Sastra, told, we are not in the top ranks of the international, but China has made one point when they wanted to become the ranking. As many of them told, we cannot afford the affordability of single institution to have all the knowledge and everything. The China government made cluster of institution and represented that for global ranking. Administration wise, they are different. Okay. So in the NEP, when gone AICT and everyone there, they can implement. Since we are going to, we cannot say we have so many reasons and we cannot achieve the top ranking.
Correct.
So there will be a thought process in our education system to represent a clustered institutions to have a global ranking.
Well, if that's one of the suggestions you're giving, the best candidate would be the IITs themselves forming themselves as a cluster, or the NITs themselves forming as a cluster. Like, but the TUs in Europe, they don't form a cluster, but they're still in the top 500. So you also have to look at them, how they are independently still in top 500. So you will have examples on both sides. But my advisory on the ranking, I have always also felt that this entire ranking exercise is a pranking exercise where the P is silent, right? So you cannot simply chase rankings. The management wants rankings, the faculty wants publications, the student wants jobs. Then finally, what does the institution need to do is a larger question that comes out. So rather, I would say, why don't we globalize our Indian ranking? Why can't NIRF be globalized? If you're talking about internationalization, why can't NIRF be globalized so that many institutions wants to figure in NIRF? That could be a first question to ask.
Of course, I think metrics are decided somewhere else, and we are trying to, fall into those systems which may not be relevant in our context. A final question. We have 6 minutes. Dr. Ramachandran. People part is critical in everything, whether it is a brand, a business, institution. People are very important. I think the people that are there represent, make it aspirational. How are you working on the people part, the talent, the students, the teachers, to make the offering more aspirational?
Testimony is alumni. With decades of legacy, SRM, today we have a very strong alumni network all over the world, and we connect with them. They are with various corporates, leaders, academicians, politicians, bureaucrats. So SRM gives importance in connecting with people and providing them lifelong experience, educational experience. So
Okay. Professor Raju, your quick comment on the people part of it. See, for example, we had Sir is here. Why don't we have a system where teachers are the highest paid? What would happen in that situation? If teachers are the highest paid, why don't IIT guys go and opt for teaching? These are layman questions out in the street, but valid questions also. Why don't we do that? How can we make people part more aspirational so that we figure out it has a direct impact.
Talk about the pay. There is the UGC, and they are mentioning the UGC pay scales. But I don't know how far the institutions or universities are paying on par with the UGC scales. If you take that, some of the institutions, they are really paying well. They are attracting more quality faculty, and they are getting, as he was mentioning, more rankings. You say the NIRF rank or NAC accreditation or NB, all these things. With the quality faculty and the quality teaching, they are able to attract the students also. That's how they are getting more funds, and they are, shining in the society.
Professor Arumugam, 2 practical steps in your suggestions that can help institutions become more aspirational, really global, so to say.
Yeah, the practical steps. Number 1, we need to upgrade our syllabus to the international standard, and we have to try to impart skill during the undergraduate and postgraduate level, and improve the research skill in the scholar level. So that only give them an impetus to the students to aspire for higher degree. And the institution has to play a greater role. Besides, the teachers are the biggest motivators for every aspect of teaching, learning and research. And as many panelists said, teachers should be heavily compensated with pay, perks and rewards, awards, because they are the main pillars of education. They needs to be properly given the chance, or given compensated, so that the education definitely goes to the next level.
Right. Ms. Rastogi, what has been your learning from offering this supplement, of course, the institutions with those addressing the gaps that they have? What has been what are the challenges there, if I may ask you?
I think in terms of policy changes, I would congratulate what the regulators have achieved in the past 24 months at least. We can say it was a post-pandemic push, or maybe things are coming to light as we are becoming more skill-oriented economy. But there is a lot of flexibility that has come towards the educations. Now the educations have to open up their culture to adopt, right? Raka said culture eats strategy for breakfast. We can keep making strategy if we are not driving a cultural change. Then it becomes difficult to adopt any innovation that knocks our doors. So I would say the primary challenge, not for us, but for an institution, is to make 5 key policy decisions. And I would quote them quickly. One is, am I open to progressive curriculums? Or do I want to assess my students based on a 3-hour exam, which they'll find ways to cheat on? So 1, am I open to progressive curriculums? Second, not every industry can come to campus, nor can every student go to the industry. Are there mechanisms available where industry interface becomes the DNA of my everyday teaching? Third, am I providing faculty development pathways which enable my faculty to broaden their horizon beyond the textbooks that are prescribed in the curriculum? Fourth, is the academic load equally dispersed so that the faculty spends a lot of time in research? And fifth, am I open to innovation? If there are possibilities there to engage, am I open to innovation, or I want my things in a certain fixated manner? So this fluidity that can come about, we can help, the government can help, technical regulators can help. There are lots of tools that can help, but I think key 5 thoughts I would like to contribute.
Wonderful. Final comment, Dr. Vaidya Subramaniam. The people part, I want to touch upon that. What is your observation of the kind of people, we have, which are aspiring to become globally recognized institutions? What can become better? How far are we? Is our India story different? Do we really need to follow on the ranking and what you rightly describe as a pranking system? Do we really need to go head over heels for that? What is the practical way that we should adopt and celebrate the system that we have?
On the people's side, we have to have a larger sense of realization that we represent almost 1/6 of global humanity. So when you have regulations for foreign universities in India, and also another forthcoming regulation, Indian institutions in foreign soil, the third logical follow-up which I am expecting is regulations for Indian institutions in India. Now, when that comes, that gives us more flexibility. We have to now start addressing issues that are local, that are regional, that are national. And if the Committee of Institutions in India put together can aggregately address local, regional, and national issues and solving problems of our country, then you're solving problems of 1/6 of humanity, and if you end up doing that, the natural derivative, I am very sure, is you're solving a majority of the problems of the entire world. And that, in my view, is the largest contribution that higher education institutions can practically give to the world by way of giving solutions to problems that are global at scale. But then you don't have to go out to work on problems there. If you solve problems in India, then you're delivering global solutions.
Wonderful. Can we have a round of applause for the panelists? Thank you so much for joining us here.